I want to just delve in then to hold on, where's the brain connection with this?
Oh
There's
yeah.
that. And the mental health side of it and the connection you kind of touched on depression there.
Yeah.
Is it all linked? You know, you think you know
Mm.
the body and you understand it, and then hold on, it's actually all to do with it starts here or it starts here and it's all
Yeah.
connected.
I
Talk me
can,
through.
it definitely is all connected. We talk about physical health and mental health, but I'd argue that, we just have health. I think we always see the brain as separate to the body. And I think this part might blow your mind now if we get into what it really is my bread and butter in terms of the gut brain axis. So I've spoken about the gut immune axis, but like I say, the bacteria, chatty little things, they're also talking to your brain. So what I'm referring to is the gut brain connection, which is the scientifically proven link between your gut and your brain. So you'll know that your brain talks to all the organs and systems in your body, but your gut talks back to your brain. And that two-way communication, actually 90% of it is going from your gut to your brain, not the other way around. And we now even call our gut our second brain. And that refers to actually our enteric nervous system. So within the gut, that 9 meters long tube, you have these trillions of nerve cells. And those nerve cells are exactly the same as the ones in your brain. But obviously, the ones in your gut aren't solving complex maths equations and things, but they do allow the gut to function completely independently of the brain. And via also kind of the enteric nervous system, as well as sort of other nervous pathways like our vagus nerve and the chatty little gut bacteria, we now know that our gut is communicating back to our brain. And that is the way in which it can have various impacts on our mood, but also our mental health. So we see that in if we look at sort of observational evidence, so we take sort of diseased populations, we see often co-occurrences of brain problems with gut problems. So if we take Parkinson's, for example, we'll see sometimes that even 10 years before the brain disease itself manifests, that often patients will have constipation. Likewise, people with IBD are sick, so inflammatory bowel disease, they're 6 times more likely to suffer Alzheimer's disease later in life. We also see that people with depression, like more psychiatric and stress-related disorders, depression, anxiety, they often have, they're missing certain bacteria, these bacteria that are really useful at producing sort of anti-inflammatory molecules known as short-chain fatty acids. So we're definitely starting to see from this research that there is this connection definitely between the bacteria living in your gut and possibly brain conditions. And you might have seen this yourself, Emily, like, IBS, so irritable bowel syndrome, is really common. It's a gut disorder that's actually been reclassified as a dysregulation of the gut brain axis. And what we see in individuals with IBS is that they so IBS, it's can be really, really affect an individual's quality of life, but it's typically can be anything from constipation, bloating, diarrhea. And what happens in these individuals is that their symptoms worsen during periods of stress and anxiety. So their gut symptoms worsen, but also they're more likely to experience poor mental health. And I don't know about you, Emily, but like, say if you eat a meal on one day, you'll be absolutely fine and a lovely, like, I don't know, kale salad, lots of whole grains and things, and you're feeling great. But the next day you eat the exact same salad, but it's just been a really stressful day, been stuck in traffic, you're late for work, emails coming out your ears, and you're just like, oh my goodness. When you eat that meal, you might start to feel bloated, uncomfortable, and having gut symptoms. And actually it has nothing to do with the food, but everything to do with sort of your stress levels at that point.
There's so much that links back to stress, and I feel like I'm not going to go into it right now because there's so much we literally won't stop talking. But when you were saying that, what I was thinking about, and I've kind of been thinking about it recently, if you bought like a pretty expensive car, you're going to want to put some good fuel in it. You might even consider, like, dare I say, putting the, upgraded premium diesel into your car, spending the extra few pounds, whether it's a difference, you don't know that, but you're going to go for it because you want to treat it the best way. You want to treat the engine the best way. And I was kind of thinking, hold on, like, say I'm the only car in terms of my body that I'm ever going to have. We all only have one car, or vehicle of our body. Why wouldn't we want to put the premium diesel in? So whether that is, as we go back to what's been grown in nutrients in vegetables, in, protein rich foods and meats, whatever it is. But does this actually matter? Like, is it a bit of a luck of the draw situation, or these people who don't have these certain bacteria and now they have Alzheimer's or they have Parkinson's. Where does this come from, or how can we actually address it?
It's a great question, and it is a bit of a chicken and an egg situation at the moment. So although I've, mentioned those sort of observational data where we do see that in individuals with certain conditions, they have this sort of different gut microbiome, something that we call dysbiosis, where they've got this imbalance in their gut microbiome with more bad bacteria, essentially, rather than the good. But because of the nature of this study design, we don't know sort of which came first. Was it that the gut microbiome did, have a role to play, at least in part, in the development of the disease? Or was it that the disease itself changed the gut microbiome composition? Now, animal studies, which is what we are kind of heavily relying currently on this space, they would suggest the former, that the gut microbiome could have a role to play in the development of these diseases. And one kind of landmark study, it wasn't an animal study, but I will tell you about it. It was called Transferring the Blues study. And it was the first study of its kind that really showed almost a causal link between gut bacteria and depression. So what happened is that they took germ-free mice, so mice that didn't have a microbiome, and they gave it the microbiome from depressed adults. And what happened is when they transported the microbiome of the depressed adults into the mice, those mice became highly anxious and disinterested in pleasurable activities. So it was the first time that we saw really there could be definitely a link here. Now, where the research is now going is saying, okay, if we see these differences in the microbiome, regardless of which way round it went, chicken, egg, whichever came first, if we could intervene and change the gut microbiome composition of these patients, will we see better health outcomes? And that is a really active area of research at the moment in the gut microbiome space. And we are seeing some really promising results for sure.